fully managed sportsbooks versus fully open sportsbooks.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is AIDEEN SHORTT. I'm a consultant with the Random Group here in Malta. And we have a very interesting session today. It's called Fully Managed Sportsbooks versus Fully Open. And we have a panel of experts that will be covering quite a bit of topics. So we're going to go through them, cover as much as possible, but we've got 20 minutes, so I'm going to move very quickly and ask everybody to introduce themselves. Starting with you, Chris, if that would be good.
Great, thank you, AIDEEN. Thanks, everyone. Hi to the audience as well. I'm Chris, and I represent Betby. We are a B2B sports provider. We are relatively new in this market. We're approximately 2 years old, but I think we have covered a long distance in a short time, and yeah, I think everything goes well, and I'm here to discuss with some nice colleagues and friends for this very interesting topic.
Okay, EBBE, I think you'll be a well-known name to a lot of people, but just in case there's anybody new out there, if you want to say a quick hello.
Yes, hello. Yeah, so I'm EveryMatrix. I'm the co-founder and present CEO of EveryMatrix, and I'll count myself among Chris's friends as we've been working together for some years in EveryMatrix before he decided to abandon my wonderful ship and set off in his little canoe on his own. We have been building Sportsbook for many years, since 2008, and we've recently gone through a huge refactoring project. So yeah, I feel a little bit like Chris as well, in right now being more at the start than in the middle or the end of this building journey, which is very exciting.
Okay, thanks, EBBE. And Morten, do you want to say, give a few words of an introduction?
Yes, I'm MORTEN HAUGE from Aspire Global. We have been servicing the sportsbook market for around 3 years on our sportsbook solution, but now recently, just a month or two ago, we acquired the sportsbook solution BtoBet, which is what we're going to work on now on the coming months and years. So it will be very exciting for us to take this solution to the next level.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the guys. So I'm going to jump straight in. And I think, Chris, we had a conversation recently, and given that it's a kind of maybe a little bit of a vague title, do you want to kind of just discuss what what each of them means? What is a fully managed sportsbook and what is fully open? Because neither is right or wrong, or they each have advantages and disadvantages. So it depends on the business model. So do you want to kick off on that?
Sure. So basically, the term fully managed sportsbook is something that we hear in the industry very, very much, and basically refers to a sportsbook solution which is usually fully managed by the provider itself. So we are talking about sportsbook provider companies like the ones we all represent here, where all the sportsbook related operations from trading and risk management to front-end, CMS and B2B support are taken care by the provider, including, of course, something very, very important for the sportsbook, the actual pricing of the odds and the event offering and everything else. When we are talking about an open managed solution, we are talking about a solution where the operators themselves, so the B2C partners of our companies, are contributing a bit more, either in the technical part by building sometimes their own sites, for example, or by using their own trading policies, their own internal teams, and so on. Just to cover something more, I think everybody will agree on that. We are not talking, necessarily for a solution which the one is not better than the other. That's what I'm going to say. It's just different business models. Depends on the requirements and many different things from the markets, the operators, the investments, and many other stuff.
And EBBE, do you find that with EveryMatrix? I mean, you've been around a long time. I mean, have you seen trends in either direction based on the kind of the needs of, say, for example, new markets?
Well, I think maybe a bit surprising. I haven't seen things change as much as you might hope or think or expect. And I think one sign of this has been this scouring of the big B2Cs to actually get their own sportsbook. So it's somehow it's a little bit disappointing, you could say, for us, the three on this panel and our colleagues from other such companies, that in contrast to other parts of industry, it's still the minority of the sportsbook trading that happens with software such as ours, and the majority is with in-house sportsbooks. And then we see...
Sorry, if I can interrupt you. I mean, do you think something...
jumping ship and moving from one to the other category. So this is actually a very interesting phenomenon, and goes back to the topic of today's discussion. Why is it so? I think this is very interesting, and something that Morten and Chris and I have to solve to have a future, unless, of course, we believe our future is to sell ourselves to some big American B2C.
Well, I want to touch on mergers and acquisitions towards the end, but going back to that, and I think just EBBE, Martin, if you could just follow on it, what EBBE said there. I mean, will there be a change in things like, we've got eSports now, we've got, and I'll just take eSports. I mean, one of the big problems is getting odds, getting knowledge, getting a reliable data, reliable service. And is this something that, it's going to be easier for operators to use third-party services such as yourself, if you can build that, if you can build the expertise that is very, very limited at the moment?
Yes, I mean, it's very much what Aspire Global has been looking for now in the last 2-3 years, when we scoured the landscape to find a solution that for us could be proprietary, and then we ended up BtoBet. We needed to look at the full life cycle, the full scale of what we would offer. So it comes from fully managed, for example, for smaller operators, to the bigger operators. And we need to be able to give this on to a broad scale, both in terms of data and also in terms of services. So what we ended up with is something that we can cater for everything, and we can also take brands from smaller brands, startup brands, to grow them up in a scalable manner, and hopefully one day, if they build a market-leading brand on our solution, then they will stay with our solution because we have the best setup for them, both in terms of technology, but then also in terms of product offering and services.
I'm going to jump ahead for 2 seconds of my own notes here. When you mentioned technology there, Chris, we discussed that there's a movement potentially between the technology that your clients want, away from iframes, for example, and into more API-based stuff. So how is the technology shaping things? And is it newer companies rather than companies, larger operators with legacy systems?
Sure. First of all, when we are talking about Sportsbook, we need to keep in mind it's a very, very, very complex ecosystem. And just to jump a little bit back and elaborate a bit more on what EBBE said, I agree, because we see that the intentions from a lot of people are actually, yes, to move in and take an open managed Sportsbook, which they will manage themselves. But when some companies really realize the work involved, in this, then is when they get back to a fully or at least partially managed solution. Getting back to your question, AIDEEN, the sportsbook itself is two main verticals. Yeah, is the technology and is the services. We are talking about the technology and particularly about the front end, what you asked. The frame solution, it's something that is not going to offer you, any uniqueness. 5 years ago or 4 years ago, everyone was looking for a white label or a turnkey, take it quick and easy and go out there. We see that we hear this term less and less. As I mentioned in the beginning, the intentions are for operators to move towards their own custom-built front-end on API. However, it's not something easy. from what I've seen, is something that it takes a long time and a lot of pain. But no pain, no gain.
Yeah, can that be done in stages? Like I know some operators, because one of the things with solutions, with a kind of a fully managed solution, is it's difficult to get a unique product. You just mentioned it there, Chris. I mean, how can your clients? I mean, would they take multiple services and then curate their own? How do your clients create something unique that is different to all of your other clients?
What we are trying to do, we are actually trying to offer both options, because I realize, and we all realize in Betby, that there are different needs and different requirements for different operators, different markets, different investments, and so on. So for us, it's not a problem, to start with a fully managed solution where we actually take care of. We cover the whole spectrum, let's say, of online sportsbook operations, even marketing sometimes. We are going to provide, particular marketing advices to our operators. And then, of course, for bigger operators who have the know-how and have the ability to show them the road, and together with us, allow them, to offer something custom, again, based on our own APIs, again, based on our own technical infrastructure and so on, but giving them the freedom they need in order to differentiate and build something different.
And Morten, you with your acquisition of BtoBet, I know they're very active in emerging markets like Latin America, certainly Colombia, and as kind of with Aspire as well. What sort of uniqueness can operators get there, where it's a scramble now to get, it's a land grab? And and how do you offer something different in Colombia versus in Nigeria versus in China? Given the way of betting and is very different. Like, for example, the margins are much higher in Africa. We know that because nobody wants a kind of a little, nobody wants an incremental win. They want a lottery style, life-changing win. I mean, so how do you manage that and across your different markets?
Yeah, I mean, for Africa as well, it's important to make sure that you have the proper setup for it as well. Aspire Global, when we bought BtoBet, which is a proven solution in Africa, one of the key items is that they have an extremely cost-efficient scalability within their system. And for Africa, when you don't have, you have much less value per transaction than you have in the UK market, for example. So you need to make this as efficient as you possibly can. So if you have this in the background paired together with proper automated segmentation, which we have also been building ourselves the last years, then you can use this one to tailor your front end, you can tailor your trading settings. So of course this needs to be by country, and trading settings specifically, you cannot take your UK trading settings and put them on Africa, or you cannot put the African trading settings to Latin America. So you need to be able to build tailored solutions per country.
Yeah, EBBE, do you have thoughts on that? Do you want to build on what Morten said?
Yes, I do. I very much agree, of course, with this need for front-end flexibility. There are many other things to discuss, but I think the front-end is a very good place to start and a very important place to start. And so we have worked a lot on this for casino, and achieved a lot for it with casino. And out of, let's say, our top 10 casino clients, more than half of them have their own completely dedicated front end, and it's been a huge factor for us in becoming a very large provider in that space. And for sports, it's just so difficult. So we tried several times to make this happen. It's just very complicated to build an API, to build the technology that really allows high flexibility and let's say complete full control for the client on the front end. And we are continuously trying and continuously iterating on this. And it's build and throw away and build and throw away. And I don't think we are there yet, and I doubt anyone else is. But it's certainly what's needed for this part. And then on the back end side, there's many other things, but I think, yes, front end, absolutely vital. And on top of being completely flexible, it also needs to be extremely lightweight. if you want to cater for audiences in Africa, etc., etc. So there's a ton of requirements, and it's a very complex product. And this again comes back to where I started. I think really we're not there yet where one of us has a product that is as good as we want it to be, or a tier one sportsbook operator to say this is what I'll go with, and this is so of course. So we have work in front of us, I think.
Okay, thank you. And you hit on a word there, control, which I think is an interesting one. Each of your clients will want different levels of control over, say, for example, we've spoken about the need for trading differences amongst markets. I presume you have the need for trading differences amongst clients. How do you handle that actually?
I would like to jump in first here, because actually this was one of the things we looked at quite early when we did our next generation product, because we recognize that need. And so today we run, I think, 25, 30 different sets of odds for 25, 30 different clients, where they each have a very deep control of their odds, where they can buy a specific feed that only is for them, and which, let's say, a tennis feed or an eSports feed. They can mix and match various content, they can adjust the odds, all of this. And the technology used for this, when you can do live betting and taking in huge amounts of data from one side and produce in real-time odds for a large set of clients, this was one of the important things for us when we developed our next generation. And I, of course, know that there are some out there where all of the clients just get the same feed. Everybody sits on the same odds, and that works at some level. But when we go to a high level, it will simply not suffice.
Cool. Just so you know, we've got 5 minutes left. It's just come through on my headset here. With regards to, it wouldn't be 2020 if I didn't bring up COVID, and Betby, I saw today a story that you've launched tennis. You've launched a new tennis game, and I mean one of the things we know from COVID was table tennis and all these odd little sports that were still being played when all the key sports, the football, etc., and racing was down, and then eSports as well, is we touched on that. What are you doing with that? How are you managing to kind of claim market share with the new sports?
Yes, obviously COVID has been a big part in our lives, especially in sports, because there were a couple of months with almost no offering of traditional sports. And that was the moment that every provider was looking for quick solutions and was trying to shift focus either to eSports or virtual sports and anything like that. First of all, allow me to say that I've been listening and I've been discussing about eSports for the last maybe 20 years, but and I see the number of people involved in eSports and the competitions around eSports being very, very big and increasing dramatically, but the actual revenue generated from eSports, I cannot say that it dramatically increased. However, what we did in Betby, and we really found it to be very successful, was that we managed to create some products which were on the edge between virtuals and eSports. I'm talking about games similar to what you mentioned, AIDEEN. We are covering different titles. We are covering FIFA, we are covering NBA, we are covering tennis, Rocket League, and some other games, which allow us, to offer full flexibility and full coverage with regards to the number of events we are going to provide. That said, nobody is, wishing to have another lockdown or no traditional sports or anything like that, obviously. But even if that happens, we feel that we are somehow secured because we now have a product which is approximately doing 25% of our GGR and is developed full in-house. And I know that this is the case for other providers as well. Those titles prove to be quite successful because they are realistic. They offer, the real teams, the real team names, the real stadiums. Everything is realistic, and I believe that a FIFA game with real teams and very, very close to reality, together with live stream as well, for example, if it's streamed in Twitch or some open source platform or anything like that, it's much more interesting than, I don't know, Philippines third league, for example.
At least you have spectators.
Sorry?
At least you have spectators in the FIFA game.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true. That's true. We're running. I mean, Ebbe, that's a very interesting point. You know, the behind closed doors sports events. I mean, what sort of effect did that have, or is it having?
Oh, it has an effect, of course. I mean, it's hard to quantify. I mean, we are finally back at the pre-COVID levels, so we're not complaining so much. But it's yeah.
Okay, I've got to jump in. I've just been asked to wind up here, but I did want to mention one kind of other particular area. I mean, we could go on for talk about this for a while, but Martin, if I could just finish with you and just ask kind of very very briefly. It's like you have recently made an acquisition. Ebbe, you said earlier, you mentioned about getting bought by big operators and and stuff like that. Is what is the space? What is the space going to look like going forward? I mean, is are markets like the US going to have an effect where the operators, they're very kind of acquisition hungry now? What do you think was going to happen in going forward?
No, sure we will see more and more of the mergers. We have to see how it goes, but there is one thing that is clear, I think. Even no matter how many companies you buy, then there will always be someone that will be able to set up a new strong solution that can build maybe a stronger product than yourself. So there's always possibilities with it. It doesn't have to be through acquisition. It could also be through genuine innovation and by building some things from scratch. So many possibilities. Yeah. Even for guys that just want to start.
Ebbe, Ebbe, Chris, do you want to jump in very quickly, and or are we all on board the same thing?
Yeah, I would say one thing, and that is that one big difference between today and let's say 5-10 years ago is the advent of sub-suppliers that most operators have never heard about and will never hear about. They know about Sport Radar, yes, and you can get very far with an Sport Radar API and forget about many other things that are complex to build. But on top of them, there are many others delivering various modules that you can actually, if you started from scratch in 2022 and you look across this set of small providers, then I think you will find that actually you could probably build something pretty cool with much less effort than we did in EveryMatrix when we had to build our sportsbook from scratch.
Yeah, times have certainly changed, haven't they? I think I need to wind this up now. It was super interesting. I'd love to keep going, but I thank SiGMA for having us on, and Chris, Ebbe, Martin. That was really interesting. Thank you very much, and to everybody who's participating and listening in. I hope you enjoyed the session.